was lifted right out of my body and hovered over my body, looking down at myself and looking around.
And as I look sideways, I can see my body laying in the couch.
My body was on the bed.
Head on, and I left my body.
I turned and faced my body, which was hanging from that noose roughly about 30 feet away. And I walked out, and I walked over closer till I was about, maybe 15 feet away so I could get a better look, and sure enough, it was definitely me. And I'm standing there, and I'm thinking to myself, how can I be there and here at the same time? And I look down, and I'm sure enough, I'm wearing the same green t-shirt, the same brown web belt, the same camouflage pants, the same black boots. I even pulled my dog tags out, and I was still wearing them. But it was when I pulled my dog tags out that I dropped them, and I looked at my hand, and I realized that if I stared at my hand, I could see through my hand and see the sand on the ground. And that's when I realized I was dead. And I had been dead and sitting next to my friends for 5 minutes, and then I realized they didn't even know I was there. They couldn't see me.
So that's what I heard. And I find myself in this big, big, dark place. Dark, dark.
Next thing I knew, I went through the ceiling of the room I was in, and I was transported into a very, very, very black, dark void.
Absolute pitch black darkness.
This place was just a place of outer darkness. It was complete darkness. It was nothing but darkness. I couldn't see anything in front of me. I couldn't see my hands in front of me. It remained complete darkness, and I'm talking about thick darkness.
And I'm in complete darkness. I mean, it's a darkness that you could almost feel. I know it sounds weird, it doesn't make any sense, but that's the only way that I can put it. I mean, because this darkness had like a texture to it. And it was complete darkness. It was just solid black. When I say nothing, I mean absolutely nothing. There's no light, no wind, no sound, nothing.
This blackness, it's just everywhere. It's through me, it's in me, and it's everywhere else. And it's just black, thick, black as black you can ever imagine.
I could see and feel and taste the nature of this thing that was closing, and it was black. It was blacker than black, and it was a bottomless pit, and it was closing, and the more it closed in front of me, the more I felt the nature of it. It's more horrible and terrifying and hopeless than I can describe in any human terms.
From that point, I became very scared.
From this moment on, I'm at a very, very, very high level of fear, and it remained that way the entire time. And it wasn't because nothing actually about the experience made it scary. Fear was literally just a part of my being. I could not be nothing but absolutely scared. And I'm talking about scared or fear, like to the point where when somebody just scares you, you get immediately scared. You may burst out, you may yell or something because you're scared, and then it begins to come down. But I'm talking about fear that stays at that level, as if somebody had you just got caught at the highest point of how scared you were, or what fear you had, and that's all that you have the entire time. It doesn't come down.
It's a fear came over me, like it's a fear you can't describe. I mean, I couldn't scream because I was too afraid to scream. It's just like everything, you're in terror, but you cannot speak. So that's how much fear is there. It's just full of fear.
Horror and terror was a part of the elements, the environment. It was a part of the environment. It was exactly, you could not even choose to be at a different level of fear if you even want to, because you don't even have the cognitive abilities to decide to yourself that I'm not going to be scared, or what's really going on. Let me figure out before I just, act frantic. There is no, the cognitive functions that we have here are completely absent. And
I remember literally feeling that I became hell. I was in hell. I was hell. I became hell. Remember feeling like I was touched by every sin of the world.
I start seeing this big, big black tunnel. This tunnel was huge, and I can hear the sound of this tunnel.
Tornado vortex. It was just going round and round. It was a tunnel, spinning horrendously around, just roaring and roaring and spinning and spinning and spinning.
I looked above me, and I saw a big light, but I was falling away from the light, and I was like, what's going on? I started to go faster and faster down this big tunnel.
And I found myself falling through the air, down this long tunnel, and it was getting hotter and hotter.
Instead of being like a tunnel that was horizontal, it was vertical, and I was going straight down. The further I fell, the hotter it got. And
as I'm beginning to go into the tunnel, halfway into this tunnel, this terrible smell starts to come out of this tunnel. A smell that I wanted to die.
And it smelled horrible. I could hear these screeches and noises.
This smell was just horrible, horrible. If this smell was on the earth, we would die, because that's how terrible this smell is.
Just like that, all these hands kept coming out of the blackness, grabbing at me, trying to pull me in, and I kept going, I don't want to go yet, I don't want to go yet.
And people were screaming at me, don't come here, go back. And there were jail cells, like stories going down.
And then I landed on a stone floor in an actual prison cell in hell. Rough-hewn stone walls, bars, filthy, stinking, dirty prison cell, but like a dungeon. And the stench in hell is so foul and putrid, the worst open sewer you can ever imagine. And the demons themselves have a disgusting foul odor to them, and the smell of burning sulfur.
Next thing you know, I was falling through the sky, and I hit the ground. Stood up, and I looked, and I go, where am I? All these people ran out, and some of them looked like people that were dead that I knew, and other people I knew that were not dead. And they come around me, slapping me on the back, welcoming me there, but something just wasn't quite right with them because they looked weird. They had yellow glints in their eye, and their eyes were almost reptile-like. I looked over and I saw what looked like my best friend turn into somebody else. And I said, hey, wait a minute, you can't do that. You're not who you say you are. Who are you? And then all of a sudden I looked around and I go, all these people around me are not people. They began to morph into what they were. They were ugliest creatures I've ever seen. They were distorted and twisted, and they were not perfect by no means. And they're just filthy, smelly creatures.
And I remember seeing these demons, and I kept saying, where am I? They wouldn't say nothing to me, but they'll look at me, and they'll laugh. They were giggling. That's all they did. And I can see them. They had real long fingernails, real powerful, sharp nails, like razors. But they wouldn't respond to me. They were just giggling at me, laughing at me.
And I could see hideous creatures laughing and jeering and pointing at me, and they were screaming, we have him now. And
the voice of a demon said to me, gotcha, you fool, and was laughing at me.
They had these long talon-like claws and fangs.
Some of them have yellow eyes, green eyes, red eyes. Not beautiful little green, red light like Christmas lights. These eyes were evil, wicked.
Before I could even think another thought, I was snatched up off of my feet by a very, very large demon. And I know this sounds already more crazy than everything that I've already said, but this thing is 13 feet tall, and it's not like I sat there and said, okay, stand still, let me grab a step ladder and measure you. Where's my tape measure? You know, no. Anything that you want to know in this place, all you have to do is ask it. Ask it in your mind or ask it out loud, and the answer will be given to you. It doesn't matter.
And you don't like logic and reason. That doesn't happen. You just know that you know. It's like having truth automatically all the time.
It's like the place had a kind of intelligence. You knew whatever you want to know about it. It was easy to understand. And first I understood, I thought, this is death. This is the absolute absence of life.
You're able to still feel exactly the fear that you felt, and still have a bunch of this knowledge about where you are and what. Because the funny thing is, I asked myself, I said, "What am I? Am I in hell?" Even though, even in my own knowledge, I knew I was in hell. But I don't know why I'm even still asking myself, "Why am I in hell? Why am I here?" But I knew I was in hell. I had the knowledge that I was in hell. I had the knowledge that everyone here is in hell. Everybody here is in hell.
There's this curious feeling that I'm out of time. Time isn't there. There's a distinct feeling of its absence. It's like you wouldn't know whether 10,000 years had passed or a second, or there is no sense of that time is passing. It's like I felt this is eternity, and because I felt it was eternity, I kind of felt like I could be here and never get out, because there's no time to pass. There's no end to it.
As long as you and I are walking around here, we're always conscious, tick, 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 of time. We get up in the morning, you go to bed at night. We're conscious on the physical plane. Everything is related to time, but everything in the spirit is related to eternity. The colors in the spirit world are more colorful. Everything's sharper. The emotions, everything.
Our eyes are white. It was yellow, and where the iris of our eyes can be green or blue or brown, it was gold and diamond shaped like a snake's, and it had a really flat nose. I mean, just looked like somebody was literally pushing its nose against its face, and its nose was easily as wide as its mouth. So really flat, really wide nose, and gleaming white teeth. I mean, perfectly shaped, just like a human's, probably better than mine. And it had, the only thing that looked really strange about its teeth was it had, where we had our canines, it had two tusks coming up out of its mouth like a boar.
Now, you know how things come from like a saber-toothed tiger where it comes down like that? No, these came up like this. And he had real pointy ears. And I remember seeing his fingernails were like claws, like really long, sharp claws.
And I thought to myself, how big is this thing? And the answer immediately came to me, 13 feet. It was exactly 13 feet tall. And I didn't ask myself how much it weighed, otherwise I would know that too. All I know is the thing was huge. It was built like Arnold Schwarzenegger in his prime. I mean, just whipped full of muscles. Just big. It's like I said, its skin was black and red.
Its skin was red. I remember that. I don't know why his skin was so red, but it was like blood red. He was muscular. He had like a six-pack.
You can feel the hate, how they look at you. You can sense that hate. That hate is so overwhelming that not even a human being in this earth has that kind of hate. It would be overwhelming for us. It would automatically explode your heart with such an ugly, overwhelming hate.
They had the most ferocious demeanor about them. They had an extreme hatred for God. They were blaspheming and cursing God. And then they had this hatred they directed towards me. The one picked me up, threw me into the wall of this prison cell. I hit the wall. I felt like bones had broken. Even though a spirit doesn't have bones, it felt that way. I collapsed on the floor, and I wondered, how could I be alive through this? The other demon picked me up, dug his claws in my chest, and just tore the flesh open. I couldn't believe I was surviving this. How could I be alive through this?
There was a lot of screams. There was a lot of fire. I seen a lot of people. There was a lot of people screaming. Before I go forward, I'm not saying this to scare you guys. I'm not here to scare anybody. I'm just telling you, this is the true what happens after death. I seen all this. I seen rivers of fire. People are burning. There's been people burning there for many, many, many years, hundreds of years. People their flesh burns they burn, and the flesh falls. And your bones get nice and toasty and black and gray. And when it's done, then the flame, your skin, your flesh starts growing back on you. And then the flames start again. And I also seen maggots crawling through your flesh, in your bones. And they're eating you.
I saw a man inside there laying down, and I saw these worms. They just appeared from nowhere, covered him, ate his flesh off, went back into the ground again, and he was a skeleton. Then the flesh came back on the skeleton again, then the worms appeared again, ate off his flesh, and disappeared again. And it kept on going over and over and over again.
The demons reached down there and reached in her mouth, ripped out her tongue, just actually took her skin and just peeled it off. It was really slow and agonizing to shreds. It done nothing to the skeletons. Then they took the bones and broke the bones. And she felt everything. Then her body would come back together. The flesh would come back together. And she'd be whole again, and it would start all over again. A different scene would happen.
There were thousands of people inside this pit screaming and burning. It was so horrendous to see a person on fire. They just looked like skeletons. And the screams were so loud and deafening. You want to get away from the screams, but you can't.
I remember seeing the expression in that creature's eyes. What surprised me is how intelligent it was. Not like an animal, intelligent like people, but more like extremely, extremely intelligent.